And so now, always bearing these above principles in mind, we're going to move on to what Ayurveda calls the three main pillars of health. And these are considered sleep, sex, and digestion. And so Ayurveda basically teaches that if these three main pillars are under control, then aside from, there are a variety of other factors to be considered too. There's many other factors, but these are really the core fundamental basic things that you can do to maintain your optimum health and your longevity. And the first one I want to tackle is sleep. This is perhaps one of the easiest to work with and most direct, but once again, just as Vata is vitiating, it can be the most difficult because our mind drags us in so many directions these days that, it's easy to get out of balance, especially, with the advent of electricities and computers and things that we can work all night now without a blink of the eye, which would never have happened, even a short time, even 100 years ago, this pushing ourselves relentlessly, easy access to coffee, all this stuff that just keeps us driven. So it's a psychological shift that has to take place, but having a regular sleep pattern that's in tune with the rhythm of the day is so crucial to health, and this isn't just Ayurveda speaking, it's just plain common sense at this point, but something we so rarely do. But Ayurveda does teach that it is one of those pillars of health that you need to get in balanced, and it's free. It's free, and you can do it at home. And so, but there are a lot of details that aren't taught elsewhere, and we're going to get into some of these tips now. So it's common knowledge that the doshas control various cycles. And some of these cycles include the times of the day. So the general pattern is Kapha begins with the rising of the sun, which is from about 6 to 10. And at this time, the earth and water elements are most predominant. And then Pitta is in the middle of the day, 10 to 2 p.m., where the fire and water elements are predominant. And then Vata is at the end of the day, 2 to 6 p.m., where it's air and ether element predominant. And then after that, the whole cycle starts all over again through the nighttime. And basically, these various energies and elements predominant at this times of day will have an effect on what we're doing and what we should be doing ideally, as well as what we shouldn't be doing, and it can be hard to really live to that to a T in these days. Living proper Ayurveda is really difficult in these days, but it can inform a lot of what we're doing and can help if you do make your own schedule particularly. It's important too to recognize, these framework, these times of days, 10 to 2 p.m. That's just a general thing, and it can be adjusted to local sunrise, sunset time by dividing, the day and night into 3 equal portions, and that'll give you kind of a basic idea of the shifts that you can watch for in yourself. Now, looking at sleep, it's recommended that we get to bed somewhere in the second Kapha cycle, which is between about 6 to 10 p.m. Once again, depending on your time frames here. And this allows our sleep to, be deep, and our bodies to go to rest easier with that earth and heavy water element. And what happens oftentimes these days is many of us will stay up till 10 p.m. or beyond. And once you reach that, 10 p.m. threshold, that's really the pitta hour. And once you get then, a lot of people experience what is called, a second wind. I'm well versed in this, but you stay up to about that time, and then you get driven, and Pitta kicks in, and it's like your whole system becomes alive again, and then you can just work all night without stopping, without any blink of an eye. And ideally, you'll be sleeping at that point, because when that kicks in, when that Pitta kicks in, that's the time when your body really needs to restore itself, to rebuild itself, to digest anything that's in your digestive tract, to clear out your blood supply, and all these other really important functions that sleep gives us. If you don't do that, if you're awake during the pitta hour, your body can't really do that effectively, and that'll just screw up so many things within your body. So it's a crucial thing to try and work towards. Now, despite the above recommended time, I will also add that what I find crucial and what I don't see talked about is the idea of how we're supposed to go to sleep, and you know, how we actually go to bed, and how that really affects the depth of our rest and the restorative function of our sleep. So, you know, this plays into the idea, just like anything we start in life, how we move into anything in life, how we begin everything in life, which is really, you know, the secret behind astrology and Jyotish. How something begins gives an imprint for, you know, how it's going to unfold. So you really need to pay that attention to how you begin the sleep cycle. And so what I found most useful is going to sleep with awareness and with consciousness will greatly improve sleep. So even if you do stay up a little late, instead of, you know, going to bed exhausted, or, you know, just keep on working and then jump into bed, it can really help if you actually take some time to calm down the nervous system, to calm down the mind before you go to bed. And a lot of that involves working with yoga and pranayama, which, you know, you need some background in order to start to approach that effectively. But you know, trying to calm down the mind some and the system. So if you do know a couple restorative poses, do that before you go into bed, because generally when we sleep to rest our brains and the nervous system more than anything. You know, the brain and nervous system takes up more energy than our bodies, you know, the physical musculature quite often. And that's really usually why people sleep, actually. Most people don't do work that really genuinely exhausts them physically. I mean, some people do, but generally sleep isn't as so much for our body as for our mind to process, you know, what just happened to it during the day. So, you know, one simple practice too is to do shavasana before bed, and even just simple paying attention to your breath, letting go of the day, and, you know, slowly starting to accept, you know, the day's over. It'll, you know, the world will be there when I wake up. Right now I'm going to go inside, and recognizing that will turn yourself into the subtle states that you're going to be entering while you're sleeping. And, you know, there's a whole lot to be explored as well within the dream and sleep world on a deeper yogic level, which is a very interesting realm, which I'm not going to get into here because this is an introduction. But doing this too may open up some deeper doors to your mind and to deeper yogic practices. And I'll just leave that there for now. But you know, pranayama obviously can take some time to master, and there's a lot of details to how to work with pranayama in a sleep practice. So without getting weird, but, you know, just even doing a simple shavasana, simple breathing before you go to bed will help you rest better and wake up with way more energy, more alertness, more awareness than you can imagine. So it's something you can work with, you know, once again, take one thing at a time. But if this interests you, it's one of the things that's helped me a lot. And in fact, you know, like I used to have an advanced yoga instructor who did have a lot of control over his system, and he did a lot of pranayama work, and he actually would only sleep anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a night, because he learned how to deeply rest his organism so much he didn't really need 6-8 hours that, you know, everybody else thinks they need. And, you know, he did this well into his old age, and he was monitored by doctors carefully, and, you know, there was no negative repercussions on his physical organism by doing this. So, and I was, you know, likewise, I was able to recreate similar experiences. I used to own a flotation, or what's known as a sensory deprivation tank, or it's also called a Samadhi tank, and, you know, I was able to do the same thing. 3-4 hours, I would go in there max, and that would be more than enough to rest the body, rest the mind, as well as coach myself to be able to start to work with the subtle aspects of prana in my own yogic practice. So if any intense yogis are out there, check out Samadhi tanks. If you can get one, I miss mine. I miss mine extensively, but they're wonderful tools though to enter into those states a little easier than if you're just doing a straight practice. But at the same time, you can get the same effects from a regular yoga practice as well without, spending $10,000 in a tank. But it can be a little more difficult, is all I'll say on that. But nonetheless, another really important aspect to sleep. So just as how we go into it, when we're there, like I said, there's a lot you can do while you're there, which we're not going to get into. And then when you come out of it, how you come out of sleep, and when you come out of sleep. So traditionally, it is recommended to wake up at what's known as the Brahma muhurta, which is roughly about an hour and a half before the sun rises every day. And, without a doubt, this is just a baseline important practice for any type of meditation, yogic, spiritual work for so many reasons, which I won't get into. But, if you are doing any type of this work, it's something to work towards. A lot of people find this difficult, and I understand, and I've struggled with it myself, but it's something, once again, to keep returning to, keep trying, sooner or later try to make it work. It has such a profound effects on the depth and the clarity in the mind, in the practices you're doing, that it can't be understated how useful of a tool it is. You'll have great insights, mental blocks, confusions that you might have had get cleared up. So much comes if you can, wake up at that time. It's just really recommended. And one of the deeper kind of reasonings for why this is recommended too is because it's at that time that the prana flows in what's known as the Sushumna Nadi, so there's this the entire science apart from pranayama in yoga that the yogis discovered. It's called swara, the knowledge of the swara. But they discovered, and it has to do with the basic alternating current of the breath. So a lot of people don't recognize that when we breathe, we're either generally breathing out of our right nostril or our left nostril, one at a time throughout the day for about roughly 90 minutes at a time. This is a general number, and it can shift depending on imbalances and a lot of other things. But in general, these things shift every 90 minutes or so. And the right channel is associated with a lot of different things, but basically, in the nutshell, the right channel is the solar channel, and the left channel is the lunar channel, or the Ida, the Ida and the Pingala nadis that a lot of people know from yoga. And when both nostrils are open, it means you have access to what's known as the Sushumna. And ideally, when you're doing meditation or you're trying to channel prana in deeper yogic practices, it's ideal to have the Sushumna open. And if we're balanced, if we're in tune, the Sushumna stays open easier and more naturally during this hour and a half before sunrise than any other time of the day. So this is one of the deeper reasons that the yogis have recommended this. And this also plays into, a lot of this current research being done with, left brain, right brain research and creative versus intellectual thinking and so many things there. But it's a really interesting study. But and we'll get into it. We'll deal with a couple applications of this knowledge within this talk. So, for example, one application is before you get out of bed, you want to check which nostril is dominating in the breath. Whether you're right nostril or left nostril, and there's different. Once you get a hang of checking your breath, it's pretty easy to check in your breath. You can just put your hand under your nose or something like that. Fingers. Some people use a mirror, this or that, but it's pretty easy. And whichever nostril is dominant, you want to put that nostril down first. And this is going to help to sync up the rhythms of the body, of the cosmos, of the breath, and it's going to help you, be successful or more successful in whatever you do throughout your day. So, of course, there's a lot of other factors involved, and it's not going to change your life dramatically. But as a general practice, getting out with that lead nostril breath will help in a subtle way. And this also plays into that idea, people say, I got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning, and they probably just put down the wrong foot first. But there's a lot to it there, and it gets into astrology and lunar cycles and elements, and there's a lot of details there. But this is kind of one of the basic things that you can do with that alternate nostril currents. And it's another reason why it's good to wake up at this time too, is it's the end of the Vata time. And so, the air and ether elements are predominant this time, which, it aids in practices. And it's also going to aid with your bowel movements before whatever you do for your daily routine at this point. And so it's usually ideal to have a bowel movement when you wake up or shortly after you wake up, which most of us don't. And most of us who are waking up after the sun rises, once that happens, then that kapha element sets in, and it's water and earth, so it's heavier. And we tend to not eliminate whatever our body was digesting over the nighttime from the previous day, from the previous night. Some of us may self-medicate kind of with like coffee or tea or something, so many people will have a bowel movement in the morning because of that. But if you need that to have a bowel movement, that really shows that your system's not operating properly. And over a long time of doing that, you'll that's how chronic diseases happen, and that's how you get really sick over a long period of time with little things like that don't seem like a big deal, but they are in the long run. So nonetheless, ideal to have that bowel movement, wake up early, something to work towards. Now, once you get out of bed, some type of morning routine to get ready before any practices you might do. And this can really, really vary a lot depending on the time of year. But in general, things like tongue scraping or brushing your teeth with like a powder. Ayurveda often recommends tooth powders, and usually they're very different from Western toothpaste in that they have a stringent, bitter taste, and this really helps to counteract the sweet taste in the mouth, what Ayurveda calls the sweet taste in the mouth through the saliva and the kapha elements in the mouth that are dominant in the oral cavity, and which can really breed bacteria and tooth decay. So a lot of toothpaste manufacturers in the West, they often have sweet tasting toothpaste, which actually can help induce dental problems and create this whole maddening cycle of dental care. But seek out some Ayurvedic tooth powders if you haven't experienced them. And I don't want to get too detailed into this, nitty gritty here, because we're keeping with basic frameworks. But also to make a point too, another thing that a lot of people are doing as part of their regime is oil pulling these days. And it's really, it's taken off like mad. And just to point out that oil pulling, according to Ayurveda, it does not detoxify your body. It's mainly to clear out the oral cavity. Sesame oil is the only really main oil recommended as a general protocol. Anything else should be really recommended by, specifically by a practitioner who knows what they're doing. So there's a lot more to that, but just as a warning, as one of the big things, since it is so rampant out there as far as part of this kind of daily regimes. Don't oil pull because you think it's going to cure your liver. Okay, so I'll just say that, and we'll continue on here. So after